Welcome, everyone. Today's presentation will introduce you to the different kinds of businesses that were open in the Yuma area in 1921 during the construction of Yuma's Carnegie Library. In the late 1800s to early 1900s, travel and road development was in full swing to link San Diego, California to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the Yuma County area of the Colorado River became a focal point following the expansion of the Southern Pacific Railroad system. Because of this, Yuma was awarded $76,000 in funds, which allowed for the construction of the ocean-to-ocean bridge in 1915. This led to the creation of the first crossing of the Colorado River and was a critical factor that had many people heading west to seek passage to California through Yuma. Before we begin, I have provided a historical map of the Yuma area. This map is the first formal plot map created by city engineers in 1927 after the flood of 1916. The confluence of the Colorado and Gila rivers caused massive damage in and around Yuma's downtown area. Water was up to 15 feet deep in some areas and washed away a majority of the adobe and wood structures found around the city. After the flood, construction and recovery of businesses began. I have included some of the historical locations of businesses that will be highlighted in this presentation. So let's get started. Located on Main Street in Yuma's Central Business District, the Yuma Theater building, constructed in 1912, originally functioned as a vaudeville and movie house. In 1912, A.J. Zeller opened the Zeller Theater at the site and operated it until the spring of 1913. While unoccupied, the owner would host betting events for boxing and other sports. On September 8, 1913, the theater portion of the building caught fire. The roof burned down and the seats and projectors were destroyed. In 1914, after reconstruction, the building reopened as Riley's Garage and operated for the next 11 and a half years before it became the Yuma Theater we now enjoy. John Gondolfo came to Yuma in 1876 to seek his fortune. After a brief time as a clerk and later co-owner of the Gondolfo & Co. grocery store, he started his own fruit and grocery store on the corner of West 2nd Street and South 1st Avenue, which eventually did business of $15,000 to $20,000 per month. Using the money from his grocery store, he built the Gondolfo Hotel, Yuma's largest building, plus rental houses and other commercial structures. He later opened the Gondolfo Theater in his name with much fanfare on October 26, 1917, with regular presentations of films, vaudeville, stage plays, musical comedies, and the occasional plays and acts from Mexico. The Gondolfo Theater originally had a basement and partial second story and a third story ballroom, but after a fire in 1925, most of the third floor was removed and renovated. Jose Maria Molina was a cattle rancher, business owner, and president of the Yuma National Bank before his retirement in 1911. Molina owned a general merchandise store on Main Street, featured Victorian architectural elements, and was used as a grocery store, restaurant, and a dwelling. In 1917, Jose moved to San Diego, leaving his sons Gus and Conrad to manage his properties in Yuma. Conrad Molina eventually took charge of the family business after his father left. Born in California, E.F. Sanguinetti came to Yuma at age 15 in 1883. Well-developed, well-educated, and ambitious, he was ready to succeed in any type of work he could. He eventually found his way as a clerk at Gondolfo & Co., the largest general store in the region at the time. When the store's original owner decided to retire, Sanguinetti partnered with Gondolfo for ownership of the store. In 1889, Sanguinetti went into business for himself and started his own hardware and grocery store, which also housed offices in the historic Molina block off of Madison Avenue. He grew to become a key player in all facets of Yuma as a farmer, merchant, and banker. Attached is a newspaper advertisement for E.F. Sanguinetti's hardware and grocery store. The business was his first and most successful venture in Yuma. With a diverse inventory of goods and sizable property, the store became one of the go-to places for goods no matter the need. Sanguinetti's businesses and vision helped shape Yuma in many ways, from bringing in the latest fads to making sure Yuma progressed along with the rest of the country. John Stafello, a former miner and cattle rancher, decided to move on to a safer kind of work. In 1899, he built a general merchandise store in the downtown area to serve dry and fresh goods, apparel, and featured a sitting room to serve cold drinks. The original building is still standing today at its original location because of Stafello's forethought to build a solid slab concrete foundation and brick walls. It was one of the few surviving buildings after the 1916 flood. Different from other businesses at the time, the Stafello Store featured a porch to stand and sit under, which was not common in Yuma. In the early 20th century, many homes opened their doors to serve as both a residence and small business. The Ylee Laundry was one of these businesses, offering clothes washing services just off of Yuma's main street. Many businesses began to pop up throughout the downtown area for travelers who stopped and stayed in Yuma rather than continuing on to California. The historic Wilson House, built by Mercedes Mendoza Wilson and her first husband, Captain John Wilson, was established as a health care facility primary to service the prisoners at the Yuma Territorial Prison. Years later, it was expanded in size to accommodate travelers passing through Yuma by rail on their way west to San Diego and the surrounding areas. The Wilson House is just one of many historic homes built throughout the city. Smith's Drugstore, located at 208 Main Street, opened in 1899 and was a long-standing part of the downtown Yuma area. Later on, owner Homer J. Smith added Kodak copying and photo supplies, along with a wide variety of personal care merchandise as depicted in the included advertisement. Eventually, later on, Smith's would feature a soda fountain, which would help keep the business open and popular with humans. With the completion of the Southern Pacific Railway, a series of hotels were built along the route to accommodate travelers. In June of 1881, a similar building was constructed in Yuma called the Southern Pacific Hotel, or as it was popularly referred to as the SB, a play on the railroad's initials SP by visitors. The Yuma structure housed a passenger depot and dining area for riders, since the Southern Pacific routes would not include a dining car service on their Sunset route for quite some time. The First National Bank in Yuma was the area's oldest bank. It opened in 1905, printing and issuing currency until 1929 when national financial panic destroyed the system and forced many national banks to close their doors. The Yuma National Bank opened in 1909 and printed and issued currency in Yuma County as well. This was a standard practice before the federal government centralized printing away from national banks. The closing of national banks was just one of the reasons for the start of the Great Depression in the 1930s. An interesting side note, a year after the flood of 1916, the Yuma National Bank became the temporary home of the Yuma Morning News and Associated Printing Company until they were finally able to move to their own building. The Lee Hotel is a two-story building located just off of Main Street and was completed in 1917. Mary Darcy named the hotel after Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The Lee Hotel is one of the oldest standing motels in Yuma and has the unfortunate distinction of being haunted. The hotel finds itself on many lists and websites as a go-to place for otherworldly activity. Unfortunately, the hotel is no longer currently accepting new guests and is partially occupied by the Gowan Company. Thank you for joining me. Look forward to more Yuma presentations to celebrate our library's centennial.